Hey, everybody. Oh man, I didn't wait for the little lady to say recording in progress. This is not a
That's
good way to start the new year off.
no,
First pod of the year, and I'm just like, okay, I was so excited I couldn't wait. I was just
it
like,
was a
and
it,
then she
wa-
came in.
it was a terrible countdown by me.
It's all right. Let's all take accountability. Hey, this is a very awkward way to start the podcast, but here we go. This podcast is all about keeping it real. So let's pull the curtain back and just show how bad we are at this. It's only like episode 4 or 5. We're still getting our footing
Yeah,
down, guys. It's fine. Hey, welcome to Matt and Dwight Just Might, a podcast about two Midwest comedians discussing their wins and losses in comedy and in life, and just about what it's like to do comedy full time on the road from the middle of the country. I am Matt Alana Martin, and with me, as always, is
Mr. Dwight Simmons.
Oh,
And
are we going with a new pronunciation for 2023?
yeah, I'm thinking of just as many syllables as possible.
D White? Yeah.
I need all the content I can get. So I'm gonna try out a couple different nicknames in January, a couple
Okay.
different pronunciations.
Okay. All right. I like this. Is there a D hyphen white? Are you trying to get on my hyphen vibe, or what are you doing?
No, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, man. I would never
Okay.
come at you like that.
All
I'd
right.
never come at you like that. Let's just go with the capital D,
Hmm.
capital W. I went to Panera and
Number
someone
one,
number one. So
dollar sign. It's silent. The dollar sign is silent.
yeah, I'm getting into hip hop. I'm getting
Yeah.
into hip hop this year. So,
Yeah.
but man,
You
how's
went
it
to
going?
Panera. You started to tell us the story about Panera, and then I
It
cut
was
you
a
off.
dumb story. It was
Oh,
about how people misspell my name, and I'm just gonna lean into it
okay. All right.
because
We'll save
it's.
it for the stage. Is it good enough for a bit?
I don't think so.
I think people
Good.
have a lot of that, but that's one of those things. That's one of those things that is so common, and so many people have that, like the your name at Starbucks being wrong on your
Yep.
cup or whatever. And it's one of those things that it's not really a hack because it is just so common. As long as your version of it is original,
Right.
you know. I don't mean to immediately get into like the comedy talk here, but that is a premise that we've heard a lot of, right?
Yeah.
And then of course the challenge then is to make it unique, not have the exact same version of it that everybody else has.
Right. It's simple enough to just be like, these people spelled my name this way, which
Yeah,
is what my story was going to be, which is why it's not a bit on stage that,
yeah.
Dwight is DWIGHT,
Hmm.
like the president or the country singer
Yep.
or the dentist who ranks number one on Google search if you type in Dwight Simmons.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we're doing throwbacks already.
Exactly.
Episode
We're
five.
callbacks to other episodes. This is great. Yeah. And so
But
just to go over it, so the president, Joe Dwight Biden,
yeah.
the country singer, Loretta Dwight Lynn.
We all know them, yes.
Yeah. And then I don't know any famous dentists. I can't can't
uh,
can't make a third example from your dentist, but I'm sorry.
Dwight A. Simmons. What's the name of the dentist in the movie? He's killing people.
In which movie?
The dentist.
Oh, I never saw the movie The Dentist.
Okay,
Is
well,
that like it sounds like a horror movie? Is it a horror movie?
yep.
Yeah.
Maybe you never
Uh,
want to go to the dentist.
oh, okay.
So
Cool.
put you under, you never wake up again.
Oh man.
Yeah.
We are jumping all over the place, but of course the thing that I always think about with anyway, we can get back on track. Hey man, we're a little slap happy. It's the first podcast of the year. We've both been off for, I think this is why we're so goofy. We've both been off stage for about 10 days or so, maybe a little bit
Mhm.
more than that. And as comedians, this it really does speak to like the weird aspect of this, of like how much of your identity and just your mental health balance comes
Right.
in performing and just having that as a regular outlet. Because then, like, I mean, I've been annoying Denise, I know, because I'm just like more like, hey, let me tell you this thing that I thought
Yeah.
of. And not even a bit, I'm not even running material on her. I'm
Yeah.
just like being annoying in my talking to her.
Exactly. Just like a
Yeah,
different frantic energy that your wife is not used to.
exactly.
Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
it's
I
like
usually get that
stored
out.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she interrupted me and I had security remove her. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, no refunds. That's what I said.
We're still charging for the one drink that you
Yeah.
didn't buy.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I think it's right, man. I think it's right, but I'm about to get back into it next week. I still have a few more days off, but uh, really, really reflected on last year. It was a good year for me, coming out of the 2020, 2021, hyphenated years. So
Mhm.
I did the thing where I went back and looked at my calendar, um, just to see where all I was, and I did some cool shit, man.
Yeah. This is the thing that a lot of comedians do, and you see a lot of this social media posting at the end of the year, at the beginning of next year, is comics kind of like taking stock, because we know so many comedians. That's a big part of our social media feeds, right? Other comedians that we know or that we follow. And a lot of comics like to do this where they talk about how many shows they've done that year. I did the same thing. I posted, like I think I did like 130 shows or something last year.
Hmm.
And that it's not back to pre-pandemic numbers yet, but it's getting there, right? It's a good. It felt like a decent year for the first time in a couple of years, for sure.
Right.
I did have this thought though. Do you think other people do you think dentists post they tweet like, I did I filled 400 fillings this year. I'm on that
Just,
grind, baby.
oh man, I got to get back on LinkedIn just to check if it's
Yeah,
just like flex posts.
it's all flex posts from dentists, and
Like,
like how
yeah,
many like how many
like,
babies delivered by obstetricians,
oh my God, airline stewardess, just
how
flight
many miles
attendants.
how many miles
Yeah,
they flew. They might do that. I don't know. Like we all
yeah.
try to take stock in our own way. But what are some of the best things that you did this last year that you've gone back, you've looked? What are things that popped out?
I had been trying for a couple of years. It just never happened to get to Denver to do comedy. And it never happened. It finally happened this year. Got to go to Denver and Fort Collins, and do the forts. I did Denver Comedy Underground, a couple shows there. And just, it was my birthday weekend. So it felt like a gift to myself.
Hmm.
And, you know, it's just some of these comedy scenes just have such special crowds, environments, welcoming scenes. They just get it. It's like no
Yeah.
matter what room you walk into, they just get it. I feel like that. Um, I have more experience with Atlanta, so I've also seen the bad side of Atlanta. But
Hmm.
Atlanta has the same thing where it's just there's so many high quality rooms. So that was definitely a highlight for me, um, especially like being a craft beer drinker, not going to my mecca, not
Yeah.
going to where they keep it. So that was
Yeah.
that was dope.
Yeah, they really have just created a culture of comedy there in Colorado, particularly in Denver, but also in surrounding cities of Boulder and Fort Collins and a few other places as well. But it really is a phenomenal thing. Like we always talk about how spoiled we were starting off at the Comedy Attic because it's such a great club and it
Hmm.
fosters a certain atmosphere. So the audiences are great, right? And then you
Yep.
go and then you have to figure it out that it's not like that everywhere.
Right.
Some places the audiences, are there for a fight or their arms crossed and mad and like make me laugh.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like going to other scenes. Like Colorado has really done a phenomenal job. Same thing with Atlanta as well. I think we can say that pretty easily.
Yep.
Minneapolis is doing the same thing now too, like
For sure.
working great clubs, but also outside of the club system. Like up in Minneapolis, they've got Sisyphus now, which is a
Yep.
Friday Saturday show, which is just as good as doing a club. I mean, it's
Yep.
just great. So, but the Colorado scene is definitely special, and it all starts like top down. People, wonder like, how do you have this? It just has to be led by example. Like they don't allow heckling, they
Right.
don't shitty comic, they don't book comics before they're ready, right?
Right.
To like do more time than they're ready for. They hold each other accountable. There's a thing in the Colorado scene I know from talking to comics there that if someone tries to start a showcase show where the venue is paying that person to run the show and put on a show and they're not paying the comics, basically they get run out of town.
For
Like
sure.
the
Yeah.
other producers and other comics are like, nope, we don't do that. We pay comics get paid here.
For sure.
And the same thing with Atlanta. You're seeing that more and more in Atlanta too, and that's something that we'd like to see in more cities, obviously, not just because of the money thing, because sometimes it's just spot pay. It's not a crazy amount of money, but it's a sign of respect,
Yep.
that they
Yep.
respect you and your art and what you're doing. So, man, I'm so glad you finally got out there. And are you heading back this year? Are you going back for another trip?
I'm gonna try, but probably closer to the fall. I went in the summer, so
Mhm.
nothing on the books there yet, but that was definitely a highlight. It just felt it felt like, all right, we're back to the pre-pandemic. My material felt pretty strong at that point of the year as well. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't tired of hearing myself speak. Like I was still tagging stuff
The
up.
sweet spot, the
The
sweet spot
sweet
where,
spot. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
man,
it's
that was great.
all you're doing at that point is just maybe like hanging some pictures on it. Like the house is built.
Yep.
Like you're just like maybe I'll just add a little, a little color to this room, and
Yeah.
like all that kind of stuff. But you're
Just
still having fun
accents.
with it. Yeah, accents, baby.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm excited. I'm actually headed to Colorado next week.
Oh, yep.
I'm doing Denver and Fort Collins, and Colorado in general, but definitely Fort Collins makes my highlight list for last year too. I was there in January of last year as well, and that's when I recorded my album, Midnight Nachos.
Yep.
And I did not know we were going to talk about this. You told me you wanted to do a recap before we started rolling, so I had not really thought about this, but
Yeah.
coincidentally, today I went back and looked at my footage of my album recording at Fort Collins in January and cut out a new submission video out of it. Right?
Oh,
like,
oh yeah.
I'm submitted to it. I wanted to submit to a festival today, and I was like, that old one was pretty good for what I did submit it for last year, but this festival, I was like, I just felt like I should go a little bit more personal and interesting, less jokety jokes, right?
Gotcha.
So I found a section closer to the end, and the whole time I'm just like, oh God, this is such a great night. Like I was really fortunate and lucky, and we caught the album in one take, which was great and everything. So I'm excited to head back there next week. And if any comedian is listening to it, or any comedy fan is listening to this, it should be on your must do list, right? They have an open mic. Just go watch a show there. Not just comedy fans, but also comedians. We talked about this, I think, before, but the importance of watching other comedy shows. Like watching a great comedy show in a great room like that should inspire you to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Even if you're not on the show.
Yep.
So,
and that's that goes for if you're looking for a secondary city to move to. I think that's got to be in your consideration. There's no reason it shouldn't be.
Yeah, the only reason it wouldn't be is because the cost of living in Denver now is, and Fort Collins, I think. And Fort Collins is also starting to get a little pricey, but the cost is getting pretty crazy out there. Let's do one more. Do you have a second highlight from last year?
I was gonna go. I'll put them together. I did the Laughing Tap in Milwaukee, and I love that city. I love that club. I love the people that run it. They do a great job of making you feel like a rock star. Did 2 nights there. We sold out both nights, and the energy was just outrageously good. And I had Shanda Sung and Thaddeus J. McKee with me, and they both they're so fun to watch grow from set to set. I just I really respect what they do, and getting to see them in a different city was just like, sometimes you have these proud parent moments. I think at least one or both of them are older than me, but just like I've been doing it longer, so I just feel I'm like hell yeah, let's go, and then it just makes my job that much easier. And I love these cities that kind of have to do things on their own and are successful at doing it. I respect the hell out of that stuff. So I know you did that club last year and really liked it as well.
Yeah, it was my second time doing it, and I've known, Greg and Caitlin and Matt for several years. I used to do their independently produced shows before they opened their own club. And I don't want to just pick the same things you picked, though. I'm just going to say, yes, everything you said about Laughing Tap is 100% correct. It is an amazing club run by amazing people, and I had a good time there. And I'm going to pick something differently for my second one. This is a little bit weird, but I think we can talk about it as a learning lesson for comedy. But this is a little name dropping, I apologize, but 2 times this year I got to open for my friend Brother Ali. Brother Ali, if people don't know, is an underground rapper, fairly successful at that, and so he was on tour. We've been friends for a couple of years now, and he just is a huge comedy fan. And so when I just told him I was coming to see him perform in St. Louis, he was like, why don't you just open the show? And so the first time I just did like 10 or 15 or something like that. And then the second time when he was coming through on the next leg of the tour, he was in Ohio, and he just reached out. He's like, do you want to do 30? And so it was very interesting doing
so
stand-up
damn cool.
comedy for a hip hop audience.
Yeah.
Now he is an underground hip hop dude, so the audience is, I think, more open-minded to weird stuff or stuff that they weren't expecting, you know.
Right.
And like I know Ali has also done shows where there's like spoken word artists in the lineup and things like that. It's not just hip hop, right? Like
you're
it's
not
just
opening up for Cardi B and Lil Uzi Vert just saying, "Welcome to the stage."
Yet. One day they'll have this old white man up there opening for Cardi B. And
they say, "Get a bucket and a mop. Welcome to the stage."
Yeah.
Matt,
and my question is, does a pussy have to be so wet?
I wouldn't open with it.
I'm not saying it can't be, but does it have to be? All right, anyway. No, but it was great because I mean, I respect him incredibly as an artist. I was a huge fan of his before we became friends with him. And it was also this thing where he's very intelligent and he knew kind of what he was asking me to do was like a tough gig.
Right.
And so he would do a thing where he'd come out before anybody was expecting him to, like at the top of the show, like, no, there hasn't been a DJ spinning, nothing's happened yet. And so people are kind of taken aback for a second. And then he's just like, he kind of like talks to them a little bit. It's very informal or whatever. And then he kind of just sets it up. He's like, you know, we're so lucky to have my friend here. He's such a good comedian, and like bring him out, you know, show him all this love. So he really set the room for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it still worked because it's also like, it's a hip hop show. People are just standing on concrete.
Right.
Not sitting down, you know, like keeping that attention and that focus was still like, particularly, I mean, the 10 to 15 minute one was easy. That's fine. Right. The novelty had not worn off yet. But then the 30-minute one, like doing the 30, it was a little bit more of like, okay, I got to work here.
Yeah.
And so it was good for me as just as a challenge, as like a step up kind of thing of like, okay, this is a different environment.
Yeah.
These are different. This is, no one was expecting this. It's also, it's one thing to do comedy at a comedy show where people came there to see comedy. So just as a personal growth thing, it was really dope to do. And, you know, and also to be like, okay, that went well. Both of those went well. I did well.
The fact that he asked you again, I think that's such a, like, you know, a little badge of honor you can put on your jacket there. Just be like, Brother Ali asked me twice to open. He asked me to do a longer set the second time. Yeah. It'd been messed up.
Not a less
like,
set. No,
hey man, you want to do like 7 and like work the door?
You like, can you help us sell merch after?
Yeah, can you? Yeah, man, I was so happy to see that for you. I know how much of a fan you are.
Yeah. And so that was definitely a highlight of my year last year. And yeah, man, it was very cool. I like this idea of also looking back in gratitude, because there's a thing in comedy where we get focused so much just like on it. We have an accomplishment, and then almost immediately we disregard it. Right. We're like, okay, but I just did this really cool thing, but I don't have any shows this weekend, so I'm a loser. Or, you know, like the mindset of a comedian is very bizarre.
100%. That's that documentary I watched called The Zen Diaries of Gary Shandling, directed by Judd Apatow. It really dives into that thing that you just described. It's like, all right, well, I got late night, and he's sitting in the green room. And he's like, so what's next? Like, he doesn't even take the time to be appreciative. So, so shout out to 2022. Happy 2023.
Yep. And everybody listening, I hope that you take time to like take stock of what you've done, if in comedy or out of comedy, if you're not a comedian. But if you are a comedian, I mean, even if you're just getting started, you know, like I saw Jessica Michelle Singleton shared a post of hers from like 10 years ago. And it was her end of the year recap, and she was so excited because she had done like 50 shows, right? And most of those I think were open mics or whatever. And she was like commenting, she was like, I was so excited. Like, that seems like so bizarre to me now. Like, I would be, you know, if I only did 50 shows this year, I would feel like I was really slacking and being a failure or whatever. She's like, but at that moment, that was such a big deal.
Right.
And we have to just take stock of that. Like, you know, anyone who's been doing this for a while, most of us have been doing this for a while, we have come a long way from where we started. Not everybody. That's just a sad fact of it. Some people have been doing comedy as long as we have, and either due to circumstances or, you know, in their lives, like maybe they just can't commit to it as much as we do, you know, like they've got kids and they've got a job and all these things, or whatever work ethic, talent, whatever it is. There's some people that don't, but most
follow us on Twitter for exact names. We'll start
exactly. That's what the Patreon's going to be. Patreon will be the names.
The shit talking.
but like, even if you're just like a year or two into comedy, you just take stock and look back at like how many mics you did. Did you get on better mics?
Yeah.
And also your material. Like, are you writing better jokes now? Are you consistently getting better laughs? That's hard to be objective about.
Right.
Like you gotta, because again, most of us fall in one of two camps of either like everything I do is garbage or everything I do is genius, and both of those camps are wrong.
Yeah.
you know
100%,
um,
man.
the comics who hear laughs and aren't there, it's very hard for them to get any better. But if you are in that first camp, which most comics are, that are always beating themselves up, man, take a little pride and stock in what you did this past year, for sure.
Yeah. Use it as fuel to keep going. And I think it's a good, I like doing it before like setting goals or resolutions for, the next few months, see, what you've accomplished and get a more recent informed view on what you want to do with comedy the next few months or whatever part of your career you're looking at. I'm a person that sets like quarterly goals, not so much yearly goals. I used to when I was first starting, just be like, all right, this year I'm going to do X. This year I'm going to get on late night, right? And it's kind of a fool's errand.
And now you're like, this quarter I'm going to get on late night.
This quarter,
that's way more ambitious.
I'm hitting up Jimmy Fallon tonight. No, I think you can be more realistic with your goal setting of, I want to do this amount of shows this, in the next few months, or, in the next 6 months, I want to do this amount of shows, or I want to write, at least for the next 2 or 3 months, I want to write 5 minutes per week that I'm going to try out, or, for the next 4 months, I'm going to tape every set and I'm going to get a set so that I can apply it to clubs and festivals. And it's more goal setting like that, and less result oriented. It's not like
because all of those are on you. All of those are the things that you can accomplish just through hard work and dedication.
Yeah.
And I think that's really smart, honestly. I think that's a great way to approach it.
And another reason of like segmenting is because, things come up, life happens. It's not like you set this yearly goal for yourself and then let's say you get an opportunity to write a packet that changes everything, or maybe you have a family member get sick and that's going to change everything. But if you can just move things or readjust things quickly, I think it saves you mental health in the long run. And I think it's just a more actionable way to look at comedy as like with goal setting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. And I think too, a thing that also that I try to do, and I think a lot of people do too, whether or not they realize it, is that you have different levels of goals, right? You have small actionable goals, and then you should never stop trying for the bigger things,
Right.
no matter what level you're at, right? Like the big thing for you is to get past at your local club, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you're not submitting to late night, not trying to get on late night. You're not trying to get a new contract for a new special. You're not trying to record an album, things like that. If you were just at that part of like, you have that as your big goal, but then also you should still have small goals too. So it's not just like this one monolithic thing. Like if this doesn't happen, then I accomplished nothing this year, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And so, for us, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like a lot of those smaller goals too, for us, are like more business related, in the fact that like filling our calendar, doing X amount of shows each year, it's things that you were kind of talking about, things that are on us that we can kind of do. Obviously, it's up to other people to book us, but it's a little bit more attainable. So we have those kind of small goals, but then the entire time we're also still working on big things that like kind of in the background, or
it's all stepping stones. It's all stepping stones. So you're never like in shell shock if you get an opportunity. If someone's like, hey, this happened this year where it's like, hey, Fortune Finster, her opener got COVID, can you fire off a clip? Like that happened to like 25 comics in Indianapolis, and a lot of them didn't have clips ready. You don't want to be in that position.
Oh yeah, I was thinking we were going to get into answering some questions, but we might have to push this off because I think that segues into something really well. Yeah, like not even the Fortune Finster thing when Michelle Wolf was coming through.
Mhm.
I think we both got asked. Did you also get asked to submit?
I did
Okay,
not.
there was a handful of us that got asked to submit. I didn't get it,
Mhm.
but it was just, and it wasn't like anything crazy. It wasn't like a giant theater show. It was just like they were doing one night at Helium,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that had also been the process, I think, in Louisville as well when they did the club there. They just asked the club, all right, send us some clips of people who could open.
Right.
And that happens sometimes. I've had
Yep.
it happen where I've been asked, like, do you have a clean clip? Because you're going to have to do 15 clean.
Right.
So we've talked about the importance of having getting a good video or whatever, but it's like just having it ready to go. I cannot like reinforce this enough because we are now into, we're into festival submission season.
Mhm.
Everybody basically opens up in January for the most part. Even what's crazy is the one I submitted to today, the festival's not till like October.
Oh, gee. Yeah.
I'm just like, that's a
Yeah.
long
So
window.
when yeah, no.
Like,
Some stuff can come up, man.
exactly. I might have be a totally different comic by then. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, but I think that idea of always being ready, you're right. If you're working on the small goals, then you are ready for those opportunities when they land in your lap for sure.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can segue off and get into some questions because
Yeah.
I think
I think
you
that's done. Yeah. I
yeah,
think
you
you
did
did
have
it.
some good ones.
I think I just repeated everything you said. That's what I do on the podcast. Dwight makes a good point, and then I'm like, yeah,
No,
that's right.
we haven't had an argument yet.
Oh,
Nah, man,
it's coming. That's on the Patreon.
this is how you're supposed to submit. Yeah, that's on the Patreon.
Patreon is we name names and we get into fights with each other.
Yeah.
We did have a really good one, and we kind of touched on a couple of things like this already that I feel like is a good natural fit for this one. But we had a question come in from Kristin Carnes on Twitter. Thank you, Kristin, for sending in a question. They asked, "What do you wish you knew when you first started?" And then the second question is, how do open mics help when they can be full of comics not listening? I definitely have an answer for the second one. But let's start with the first one. What do you wish you knew when you first started, Dwight?
Do not make eye contact with Jarrett Thompson, the owner of the Comedy Attic. No, I'm kidding. What do I wish I knew? I wish, honestly, for as much comedy as I watched growing up, I wish I just knew simple mechanics of how to get to stage and how to stand on stage. I saw a Facebook video of myself of like it was still the funny bone. I was wearing just the worst jacket, like it was bedazzled. I don't know what was going on with me in college, but
Yeah.
it was like a knockoff Ed Hardy. I don't know what was. Oh my god, dude! I was having an identity crisis. I had a full afro, knockoff Ed Hardy, and baggy jeans, and
Oh yeah.
I was like I forget the joke I did, but like I kind of had this Eddie Murphy raw energy of
Hmm.
pacing, but kind of like a Rodney Dangerfield throwing my jokes at you shrug. And I'm like, who did I watch just too much comedy and just take certain parts from my favorite? But I wish I would have known, and this comes with time, obviously, of just getting comfortable standing on stage, but move the mic stand, uh, hold the microphone to close enough to your mouth so the audience can hear you.
Yeah.
Uh, don't stare at the ground the entire time. Again, that's recent on my mind. If I didn't see that video like 2 days ago, I'd probably have
Yeah.
a different answer. But that's definitely,
But that's good. You had a
yeah,
good reminder. And the thing I would say also, like, just to clarify one thing in case somebody is brand new in comedy, when he says move the mic stand, what he's talking about is you move the mic stand behind you if you're not going to use it. You set it to the
right,
back of the stage. So it's not a weird visual obstacle in the front of the stage. Because we've also seen people that move the mic stand out of nerves. Like there's
yeah,
a clip of me very early on stage at Morty's, rest in peace, Morty's, where if you play the video at like 2 times speed, it looks like I'm vacuuming the stage with the mic stand.
I
Because
love it.
I took the mic out, but I'm just holding it with
Yeah,
my other hand and I'm just pushing it around at all these different
I
angles.
love it.
So
That's most people
um
just like whip the cord or tie the
Yeah.
knots in their hand.
Yeah, or just continually play with the cord or grip it. And I know somebody who they're a nervous tick that I've talked to them trying to get, it's a younger comic, trying to get them to stop doing it, is that they're constantly fiddling with the mic stand and pushing it up and down.
Oh no, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, which is of course like the universal symbol for hand job. And they're not
Yeah.
trying to do it as a joke. They're not doing it in the bit. It's just a nervous thing that's happening while they're doing jokes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important thing. But again, you only learn that stuff by getting up there and doing it, you know, because it's all nervous reaction. So I think something I wish I knew before I started was, I mean, there's things that I think I couldn't have avoided because they were nerves based. Like I cussed so much in the beginning. Like that was my nervous tick, because I dropped the F-bomb constantly and without purpose. Like you want it to be like a sniper shot. You want it to be like drop the curse word for a reason in a set. It makes everything, it makes a joke blow up, you know. And when you do it all the time, they become desensitized, you know. I think I wish I would have known where you got that jacket, because I would have liked to have had
I don't know.
I know you don't want the jacket back, but you kind of wish you had the afro back. Let's be honest. Like, do you not
just once a day? It's not all day anymore. I'm in afro recovery. I'm good. No, I also wish I have this regret of not applying myself straight off, you know, straight as soon as because I came up with guys that were at the open mic every week, and I just showed up every once in a while. I didn't go and hang out at shows I wasn't on. I wish I knew like that aspect of it, because not only do you put in FaceTime, but it helps you see more comedy, helps you see what not to do, helps you form what you like and what you don't like, and helps you grow as a comic just being around it.
And being around good comedy. I think the thing you're talking about is like when you're just doing open mics and you're just
I think
your other
any
peers.
I think any comedy. I think when you're first starting, just being around any comedy helps form. All right, I'm not going to do that. Or, you know, you pick up good habits, and it's not that you're picking up bad habits, but you can see bad habits in action. And if you're around enough good comedy, then I think it'll weed itself out of your act.
Well, that's the thing, is I think it has to be good. I'm going to disagree with you. I think that being around
Patreon
bad comedy, like if you are brand new in comedy and you don't know what is good or bad yet, like yes, you've watched professional comedians your entire life, but in the open mic scene, you know, we used to talk about we would go do these shows that had small scenes, but they didn't have a comedy club there, and no one in that scene ever got better, because they were just looking at each other. And you know, like, and other like regional comics who came in who weren't much better than them, you know. And so there was nothing that, like, no one was watching Maria Bamford or Dana Gould on stage or Hannibal Buress, or just like someone who just blows your mind, and being in the room is so important. They're just watching each other. And so you would see people pick up bad habits from each other, or start imitating their buddies, you know, because their buddies doing incredibly hacky material that's getting laughs in an open mic or in a shitty bar show. And so then they start thinking, oh, that's what you should do, and they start gravitating towards that. So I think it's actually dangerous for comics when they're brand new to be around nothing but bad comedy. I mean, I think
it's not nothing, but like I think it's okay to have a balance. There's only like so many scenes that, like you said before, we're spoiled. There's not that many scenes that get great acts on a regular basis. Like that's why, you know, to bring it back up, I'm so grateful for these scenes that without, like, from scratch figured it out. You know, they know what good comedy is, and they, you know, they respect and those are really good scenes now. So but
I think the difference there, both in those scenes and then also with you and me and people, that there are people that are, again, they're seeing their peers more than they're seeing anything else. They're seeing the people that they're grinding it on a mic. So when everybody's bad together, is if you are objective about it and you are really kind of breaking it down and thinking about this more than just, like, I think you have to be really thoughtful about it, which you're a thoughtful person. So you were quickly kind of weeding out, like, okay, I don't want to do that. Like, that doesn't feel right or whatever. But I think there's a lot of There's a lot of young comics that are
Yeah.
just too impressionable, too
Yeah.
moldable, and they get molded by bad habits.
It's true. People, I mean, yeah, that's like I said when I when I first started, I watched myself. I was doing my impression of
Yeah,
other comics. I
but
think
that's natural. I think
you're
that's
a,
normal.
you're 100% right though. Like if that's all you see,
Yeah.
like
And so, and I swear I'm not thinking of anyone specific, unless of course you subscribe to the Patreon, and then I'll tell you exactly the comedian I'm thinking of. No, I'm just
$5 tier, baby.
$5 tier. No, no, I just think that it is one of these things that it's important to immerse yourself with good comedy in the room and watch people above you work. That's the thing that's always crazy to me, is when you go to a club or you go to a scene and none of the local comics are hanging out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I did I did a club one time with Sean Latham, and Sean Latham is a beast on stage. He is very good.
Yeah.
He is a very good performer.
Yeah.
And just as a guy who had already been doing it at that point, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, I was featuring for him. Like, I had shit to learn from him just in the performance aspect. Like,
Right.
we write very different types of material, but man, he comes out and that weekend, he had one of the strongest, probably opening 5 minutes of anybody I had seen at that point. And I'd opened for a lot of bigger comics. And there wasn't a single comic in that scene, which is a pretty decently big scene and has a lot of comics, who came to, and I'm not saying they're not, probably not gonna learn anything from me, might pick up a thing or two here, might hear a joke that they like, but like, just not to take advantage of that opportunity to watch headliners. There's a reason people are headliners most of the time. And that reason is they blew up on TikTok. But before that, it was because they worked really hard at comedy. And I think there's things that you need to learn from people, and I try to keep that attitude now too. Like, yes, I've settled into kind of my style of comedy, the way that I do it, but I can still learn from people that are radically different from me, but are good at what they do.
Yeah.
And so I think there is, again, like, I hate to keep harping on this, but I do think there is, I just see it. I see people either taking way longer to get better than they should because they're only looking at their peers and each other, and they're not particularly driving each other and pushing each other. It's one thing if they're pushing each other and like, let's write more, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of younger comics and older comics, I think, probably too, but there's a lot of comics that are more into the lifestyle of being a comedian,
right,
and the social aspect of it. They've got a little clique of friends that they can see multiple times a week as they go do all these open mics together or whatever, than they are about the work,
right,
writing material, becoming a better performer, all that kind of stuff. And so that's a weird, hugely distracted aside to your question, Kristin.
That's the new name of the podcast, by the way. A huge, weirdly distracted aside from your question. That's all we do. If you want an in-depth answer, then you're at the right place. I feel like we do a decent job.
I think we do all right. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other concrete things, like your thing about like, controlling yourself on stage, physicality, like working that pretty early on, I think is important to kind of get your nerves under control. I think a thing that I wish I would have known when I first started was, to not justify, and I'll put myself up there too, like not to justify the bad habits that I was doing, right? I would try to write it off or whatever. Like the fact that I did cuss too much, or that I paced around, like I would always like, and this is true, I do have flat feet, but you know what? My flat feet don't hurt so bad I can't stand still for 5 minutes during an open mic. It's like, I'm not up there to bust your Browns. You know what I'm saying? I'm not wearing the hard soles up there. I didn't tap dance right before I got up there to talk, but I would justify it. I would be like, but it was distracting, and because again, there is a difference between movement on stage with purpose, and in control and confidence. And you were talking about that. You were having like an Eddie Murphy Raw like thing, or like if we think about Chris Rock paces the stage, there's nothing random about that. That is all intentional. And when he stops to deliver the punchline or the setup or the line, that's all intentional. But I was just meandering.
Yeah, it's just like stage. Man's trying to get his steps in.
Yeah,
he's trying to close some rings on his Apple Watch.
So I think that's a big one. Yeah, and I think to get a more metaphorical or metaphysical, whichever it's going to be, philosophical, I think a thing that I wish I would have known when I first started was yes, to take it serious, but also to not be so hard on myself, because I
Hmm.
was incredibly hard on myself when I started. Like if I bombed, it destroyed me, right?
Yeah.
I had so much of myself wrapped up in it. And the thing is, like, I was 35 years old when I started. I was a grown ass man,
Yeah.
like, and it should not, this silly little, like, my doing my little skits didn't go
Right.
well, it would fuck me up. Now, again, that's part of that is because of the drive that I had and because I wanted it so badly, right? I was so
Hmm.
obsessed with it. And that drive and that obsession is why I've been able to do it as a job, now.
Right.
But if I was to give myself one piece of advice going backward, it would definitely be that of like, figure out a way to shrug off the losses.
Yeah.
Um, you
Your
know,
first 3 years should be the fun ones.
yes,
They should
exactly.
be
Yeah.
if you're not having fun in the first few years, I don't know what's going to get you through doing it, long term. You should definitely be enjoying yourself. That's when you have the most fun. You're on no one's radar. There are no
Oh
stakes.
yeah. There's no stakes. And no one is, and people that know aren't expecting you to be good. We always
Hmm.
think like, oh, and this is part of the things that, this is something also I think every comic should know when they first start, is like, most comedy club owners do not expect you to be good for the first several years. As long as you're
Hmm.
nice
Yep.
and you're trying, they're going to
Yep.
let you still get up there.
Yep.
Now if you get up there and you're horribly offensive and you say a bunch of, crazy shit that like should not be said in public, even on a comedy stage, yeah, they're not going to have you back. But if you're just trying to do jokes and you're not an asshole and not a
Hmm.
problem to the club owner, to the staff or whatever, it doesn't matter if you bomb during an open mic.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you bomb during a guest set on a weekend or like on hosting. It matters a little bit more than that open mic, and you don't want to bomb all weekend long.
Yeah.
Have a random bomb and you're early on. Bombing really only starts to matter when you're like featuring and headlining, and even then most club owners understand it.
Right.
Now if you have 5 shows that weekend and 5 of them are bombs, yeah, that's bad.
You can't
That's
be
bad.
doing that.
Yeah.
But that's a
But
different, yeah, you're at a different level
you're at
at
a
that
different
point.
level and they're expecting you to sell tickets, and they
Yeah.
now even the audience doesn't expect the first comic to be that good. That's just the reality of it.
Hmm.
It's almost they're almost surprised. Have you
They
ever gotten
are.
that compliment when you've like done a host gig or a feature gig and people will come up to you afterwards and be like, "You're the first opener we've ever seen that has been good"?
Yeah. Like they don't, it's like, I see there are some clubs where like half the audience shows up late because they know they're going to have to sit through the hosts and his
Yeah,
announcements, and it's always bad. But yeah, I
yeah,
always thought that was really funny where they're like, oh my God, that was, that, because I think we've said this on the podcast before, but hosting, it's your show. You run it, it is your show. So it sets the tone for the whole night if you can have, a really strong, good set. And I
yeah.
think it sets you apart from a lot of, or the rest of the pool of MCs at that club. It just does, because it's a hard thing and not that many people are good at it, because it's either their first or second time, or
Mhm.
they've been doing it for a couple years before they get moved up to feature.
Yeah, and that's, again, it goes back to, again, we're doing all callbacks to former episodes, but yeah, like that's the
Yeah.
importance of being a good host, even when you're long past hosting. Like if you go back and do it, like because again, like sometimes you get the opportunity to open for a super famous comic and it's a theater
Mhm.
show or something like that, and it's a huge thing, and it's a 2-person show,
Yeah.
and guess what? You're the host again.
Yeah.
You're like, yep, you're doing a long set, but you are the first person coming out there. You
Yeah.
gotta warm them up and thank them for being there and all that kind of stuff. So it never goes away. And then you get
Yeah.
super famous, and then you get to host the Oscars. Guess what? You're the host again.
You're the host. You host it. You
Hosting
gotta do
never goes
promo.
away.
You gotta do radio. You gotta do promo.
So I think that that's a couple of good answers. Hopefully there's some good answers in there, Kristin. I'm sorry if that got a little meandery, but again, we've been off stage. We've got a lot of thoughts that we're trying, and a lot of energy we're trying to focus. I do want to speak to Kristin's second question. How do open mics help when they can be full of comics not listening?
Go ahead. Yeah, you go
I
ahead.
have a take on this, and my take is that doing a bad open mic is worse than not doing it at all.
Hmm.
When you do now, every open mic can have a bad night. It happens. The audience is bad, or there is no audience, or whatever. But if you know an open mic every single week, that open mic is garbage, and that there's no audience other than comics that are just running jokes for each other who do not give a shit. and aren't being supportive. I've done shows. There used to be an amazing show, weekly show in Indianapolis called the Monday Show. And it was they still do it, but now it's every other week. But when it was in the weekly format, there would be a couple of normal human beings in the audience, and I mean a couple, like 4, 5, 6 maybe, but it was mostly all other comics. But they set the expectation, like, you're not on your phone, you're in the room watching and supporting each other. That's all it took, is them setting that expectation. And it was a great open mic. You could legitimately work on material, because, you know, if they saw you on your phone, they're going to kick you out of the showroom and they wouldn't book you the next week. Like, there were consequences for not being a good audience member, right? Not saying you had to laugh at everything. There were still people that had rough sets in that room, you know, but they had set it up in that way. But if there is a mic that is not like that, and all the comics are outside smoking and hanging out, and again, you know, really being into the social aspect and not being into doing the work part, which also includes watching other comedians, don't do that mic. That mic is not doing you any good. It is, I think, damaging to you, because you'll go up there, you'll get discouraged, you'll think a bit is no good because you've done it in a shitty room, and that bit might be good. You know, and so I would say that, you know, and again, like, if you're not in a scene that has multiple mics, and it's hard for you to really get a bunch of stage time, and you have to do some of these shitty ones. I started feeling like this pretty early on. This isn't me saying this 13 years on, and the shitty open mic's not worth my time. Pretty early on, if I knew a mic was bad, I didn't go to that mic anymore. And I would instead maybe drive, instead of driving an hour to Indy to do a terrible mic, I would drive 2 hours to Louisville to do a good one. You know, and so I think there is no benefit in doing a bad mic. There just isn't. And so it can only damage your self-esteem and what you think about the jokes. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I think it's expectation setting, and like, it's just mindset, sort of like a mindset shift. If you know it's a bad mic, but you really, let's say this is the only night you can get up that week and you really want to go do it, maybe, you know, I'm going to work on this 3 minutes. But like, work in quotation marks, like, I'm going to say this out loud, and I believe in it, and I'm not going to take it personally if no one listens. But some of it's just like, some of it's just like getting up and saying the thing out loud to see. It's just like a mental thing. Like, this is another city open mic rant, but all the mics in New York, all the mics in Chicago, like, there are no audience members. It's comics that are, you know, waiting for their name to get pulled out of the bucket so they can do 3 minutes so they can leave and go do the next one. You have to find something mentally that keeps you going to those mics. And if it's, you know, it's either I believe in this material, and I got a couple chuckles, you know, maybe that's enough. You're not going to get the club mic atmosphere, but if you can find a way to build confidence in whatever you're working on just by saying it out loud, I think it's worth it. Otherwise, I wouldn't go to these mics to do a brand new, you know, 3 minutes if you already know going in no one's gonna give a shit or listen. Also, it's a thankless thing, but if you want to run a mic in a city that doesn't have them, you can do that shit. Like, and then you can set the expectation of what a good mic is. And like I said, this is thankless. I don't wish that upon anybody, but if you need the stage time, this is the thing. It's like, we tell comics all the time, they ask us for advice. We're like, what do we say? We say, get on stage any way necessary. Just get on stage, start a show, go to the shitty open mic, like, just get on stage, be around it. So I think early on, not going to the shitty mic is sort of a cop-out, but I also think that not paying attention and being a decent human being is kind of a jerk move anyway. So
because it comes back again to, you know, it sounds like again, you have an intention of going to a mic and working on material, but then if everybody else just, you know, isn't there to watch the mic or support, and again, like the New York and Chicago, those big city mics are crazy. You know, when I visited New York, to do other shows just to get the experience. I did a couple of bucket mics, and I was just like, this is
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
And
It'll drive you
I mean,
insane.
I understand your point, and I agree with you to a certain extent, but I personally, even early on, found it was more. So this is the episode where we break up, guys. This is the last episode of the podcast. We
We've
finally
made it
disagreed on
4.5
something.
episodes.
No, I found it more helpful to do it to the mirror, to perform that material out loud in my house, timing myself. I would use the timer on my microwave. I would start the microwave timer. I wouldn't look at it, and I would just try to go through this. I found that to be honestly better for me, working out verbal stumbles. Saying it out loud, rewriting it into how I actually speak, because all of us do this. All of us write, when we actually write something, type it out, write it long form. We write very differently than we speak. Most of us do. And so then converting it into actually how I actually talk, so it's more comfortable to deliver it with confidence. I found that to be better, honestly, than doing terrible mics again, because it affected me so deeply. Now, if you have thicker skin than I do, then go to those shitty mics. But I just felt like it made me question things that then I later proved to be perfectly good jokes. And I'm not talking about like one time.
No,
like,
of course not. Right.
I tried some of these shitty mics like weeks in a row, because that's what we did, and you went to them all the time, and you went to every mic. But then it was just like, after a certain extent, like a year or two in, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this is bad. And so I think you can, I think quality stage time is more important than quantitative stage time. I think even early on. Now it's also because, when we started in Bloomington, I don't think there was a weekly open mic at the club back then. I think it was every other week or something like that. I don't even think, maybe it might have been weekly, but starting off as a young comic, I couldn't get on except for every like 8 to 12 weeks or so, right?
It was a list. So you could not perform it's like you get once a month.
Right.
And
so I would that would be the thing that I would shoot for, right? I would then drive to Cincinnati, I'd drive to India, I'd drive to Louisville and do mics there that I could get on. And I was perfecting my 5 minutes on those mics to then do at the Comedy Attic at my home club open mic when I could finally come in, so that it was tested. So I came in and I was like, bam. And it was like, oh, not that it was amazing, but it was like I had already figured out which jokes to cut, which jokes needed strengthening up, like kind of all that kind of stuff. That's how I did it. But even doing that, I mean, I still maybe only got to do a couple of mics a week, which I know is very against like this mindset of hashtag grinding, always be grinding, always on stage. No, because if you go up every single night, then I think it means less. When I had to drive 2 hours to Cincinnati to do 5 minutes at Go Bananas open mic, I knew what the fuck I was going to talk about. I had it worked out. I had that shit worked out. I did go up there and go, oh, let's see what else, man. I had my 5 minutes down. I'm like, this is a 4-hour round trip on a weeknight that I have to then go be back at work, and I have to leave work, go do this mic, drive, go do this mic, come back, sleep for 3 hours, get up, go to work the next day. Like, I didn't fuck around. I was on it. And so I think less stage time that's better is better. I mean, we're going to disagree on this, and that's fine. I think it's actually we're disagreeing on this. So
I mean, I agree, man. But it is where you are in your life and career. Like, I mean, I think just last week I was talking shit about ever stepping foot in the open mic again. But
you were,
So like, I agree.
So he's too good for it, but the rest of you peons should do it. You plebes, you should get out there and really hit those mics, because Dwight's not gonna.
Buy the one drink for your 3 minutes.
Speaking of which, also, definitely buy something when you go to an open mic. I went to an open mic on Sunday that I'd never been to before, and because we've been off stage for a while, right? And I was like, I need to get a little dirt under the fingernails again before these weekend shows. And so, and I don't drink, so I bought an expensive bubbly soda thing that I didn't really want, because I'm going to support. Like, I could have just gotten water, man. But it's like, man, here's my $3 and $1 for the bartender guy. Like, let's do the buble or whatever. I don't know what it is, some kind of flavored bubbly drink.
Their sponsor.
That's
bubbly.
Important. All right, I think we got into some good stuff there, and we're no longer friends. Okay, that's important. And
well, we had a good run, man. We had a good run. Hope your flight's delayed to Denver.
Oh, well, luckily
Yeah,
I'm driving.
Southwest. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll drive safe. I can't say anything
All right,
the
yeah,
Prius.
don't make any jokes about that. Yeah,
absolutely not.
All right, well, we're coming up on an hour. Thank you, Kristin Carnes, for that question. That was obviously a really meaty 2 questions because it took up most of the hour.
Yes.
So good questions. And like Dwight said, start a mic, and then I'll come do it, but he won't. But
I will not. Kristin runs a great show in Lafayette. I did this year or last year, and it was this really cool bar. It rained. They moved us inside. It was packed. We had a really good time.
Nice, right on. Well, hopefully I will do that show. I think is at the Spot. I think.
Yeah, the Spot. That's what it's called.
Yeah, I'd heard about that show.
Really cool ass bar. It's like
that's awesome.
Very hipstery in West Lafayette, which I did not know existed.
Oh, so yeah, that's where the townies are in the west part of Lafayette. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here by doing some plugs. Let's plug some stuff. I just want to point out that we're like 55 or so minutes into the recording, and this is the first time I've mentioned my special, which was a dominant theme of the first 4 episodes of this podcast.
We talk about what's happening.
Yeah. I have a special. It's on YouTube. It's called Tango in Philly. It is available for free for you to watch. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. If you're into comedy, you might like it. And then this weekend, January 6th and 7th, I'll be at the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, opening up for our good friend Brent Terhune. January 8th, I'll be at Go Bananas, opening up for our good friend Kelly Collette. That is in Cincinnati, Ohio, or just north of it. What's that place called? Manchester, Ohio, I think.
Sure.
Google
Westchester?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then next weekend I am doing my Colorado run. You can catch me headlining Ratio Beer Works in Denver, Colorado on January 11th, headlining the Comedy Fort, the wonderful, beautiful Comedy Fort in Fort Collins, Colorado on January 12th, and then featuring for Catherine Blanford at the Denver Comedy Underground in Denver, January 13th and the 14th. Dwight, what do you have coming up?
Beautiful. Back on shows, baby.
Back on shows. Did you hear how professionally I did that? I was ready to go.
That's great. Let me pull up my calendar. This podcast is sponsored by Limestone Comedy Festival. Submissions just open January 1st. Follow Limestone Comedy Festival on any social media to stay up to date. I am back on stage in Evansville, Indiana, January 13th at the Arcadery Bar.
Oh, great room.
Yes.
Great room.
Cannot
Such a good
wait.
time. Yeah.
And then I'm at the Red Roof Ballroom on Saturday the 14th. That's in Indianapolis. And then the Comedy Attic in Bloomington, where it all started to tape my special, Who's the Master, on January 20th and 21st. So we are in get down and boogie mode. We're back. We're off of vacation. We're not messing around anymore. It's go time. So yeah, check out Matt if he's in your city. Check out me.
Yeah.
Shoot us those questions at the email, which is
dwightandmatt@gmail.com. dwightandmatt@gmail.com. Let's actually pull up real quick. I should have thought to check this before. I already knew that we were going to do. It's not Dwight and Matt. It's Matt and Dwight. Holy shit. It's MatandDwight@gmail.com. It's like the name of the podcast.
Yeah,
not the inverse. Not the inverse of the podcast. But Matt and Dwight, only one T in Matt, A-N-D for and then we went over very elaborately how to spell Dwight at the beginning of this episode of the podcast. So
don't mess it up.
Yeah, capital D, capital W, $1 $. All right, man. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the podcast. We'll be next week. We're going to do recaps on the shows that we're going to do, and also going to answer a few more questions. We still got quite a few to work through, so this is very exciting. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you, everybody, who has sent in questions. We appreciate it. Until next week, Dwight, anything you want to leave them on?
Not a goddamn thing. Stay safe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.